Alright guys, so now we're back with another entry in our Community Cast series. In this match, we're going to have a showdown between the Empire, who shall be led by the Central Scrutinizer, and the Dark Elves, who are going to be helmed by Hadri. So it looks like we're going to have good old Pimp Daddy GELT, a Warrior Priest, as well as a Witch Hunter, facing off against, I think it's just going to be a Supreme Sorceress as far as the heroes go for the Dark Elves. Let's go ahead and take a look at the armies for the Empire. We are going to be on a very open field map, so definitely going to be quite solid for the Imperial Powder. They do have the Sterling's Revenge, a couple of groups of Free Company, it looks like. No, maybe actually it's just going to be Handgunners. So the only Free Company are going to be the Sterling's Revenge, and there's going to be two groups of Handgunners, one of which is going to be the Silver Bullets. So a lot of good armor-piercing firepower. I mean, pretty good against Dark Elves in general. You do often see Corsairs, Cold One Knights, and these guys have pretty good range. The Silver Bullets have 150, so they are going to be able to outrange the Dark Riders with their repeater crossbows and potentially fend them off. The Empire is most certainly going to be having to take a very defensive posture here. They have a cannon, which they have to babysit, and they have a lot of powder units themselves. On top of that, we got Pimp Daddy GELT up in the skies. And as far as his spells, he's going to be riding the Great Quicksilver, and he does have the final transmutation, so just getting straight to business. He's going to be trying to nuke out that Supreme Sorceress of Death, who has no means of healing. It's not going to be like Marathi or Malekith, who do have the Soul Stealer. She's going to be taking those final transmutations right to the dome. In the back, we do also have the Hammer of the Witches for the Empire, which is always quite a bit of fun. I mean, it's not bad. Golden Riders, like I said, are pretty common. Dark Riders are pretty good, a juicy target as well. They're big, they're high mass. The cannonball can oftentimes tear through a couple of them. And aside from that, I mean, yeah, the Hammer of the Witches has plenty of targets in this particular battle. On top of that, the Empire does have a front line, which is going to be a little bit mixed arms. So there's going to be some Spearmen with shields, which are the more, I would say, one of the more standard competitive picks, simply because they're very cheap. They have anti-large against cav units, so if they have to go fisticuffs against Golden Riders, Dark Riders, things like that, they can do well. But more importantly, they just have that high melee defense. So yes, they're not going to be able to beat pretty much any of the Dark Elf infantry, but they just hold, which then allows your handgunners in the back to do really well, as well as the greatswords to follow up shortly after. And the greatswords, there's going to be 2 in total, and they're going to be supported by a Warrior Priest. So the Warrior Priest does have the Grand Hammer of Sigmar, the Soulfire, as well as the Shield of Faith, which does give that juicy 22% ward save. So pretty cool little Empire army, a couple Empire Knights in the flanks, definitely going to be outclassed by the Cold One Knights, but I would imagine he's going to be using the Halberds to fend off the Cold One Knights, and will be using the Empire Knights a little bit defensively, or with the support of a Warrior Priest, or perhaps some of these other like spears or units around here. So for the Dark Elves, it looks like they're going to have 2 groups of the Dark Riders with repeater crossbows, which are a very good high-speed unit. They're going to be able to really do a ton of work against Empire heavy cav, and I think that's one of the reasons why you see them in this matchup. So Dark Riders with repeater crossbows probably going to be shooting at greatswords right out of the gates, or maybe going after the Empire Knights. On the far side, Dark Riders, and it looks like Slaanesh Harvesters, which is definitely going to be solid. If he decides to take an engagement with, let's say, his Dark Riders against Empire Knights, he can help to normalize that situation using the Mark of Reward of Pain, not Mark of Pain. And he does also have a Soul Stealer. And these guys are just really good. And typically, anytime you're going to be facing off against the Empire, it's really good to have a ton of backline harass units, because they get most of their money, out of the Silver Bullets and just these gun units that they often have in the back line. And yeah, you're probably not going to see crossbows here, but yeah, Dark Rider's a very good choice. Like that quite a bit from Hadri's. And for his Lord, he does have the Supreme Sorceress of Death with Spirit Leech and the Soul Blight. Pretty standard stuff there as well. And a couple groups of Cold One Knights. Oh, it's actually going to be the Knights of the Ebon Claw. So these guys are going to be badass. I mean, they will vastly outclass the Empire Knights, and if they're able to get onto the appropriate target, so anything that's not a spear or a halberd, they're going to be able to do a ton of damage. I mean, these bad boys have murderous mastery, which means when it goes off, they get leadership, 25% melee attack, they cause fear. I mean, these guys are just straight up beast mode. I mean, they're very expensive though, so Hammer of the Witches should be having a field day, and it looks like the Hammer of the Witches might have been shooting at Dark Riders, but it should definitely be shooting at the Knights of the Ebon Claw here. For the rest of the army, Dread Spears out on the far sides of the formation. Sisters of Singing Doom, it looks like we're going to have some Blackheart Corsairs and a couple groups of Witch Elves, which are always good. Witch Elves I like quite a bit against Empire. If you're able to catch their characters or anything of high value, the Rampage is just so damn good. So guys, without further ado, let's get the show on the road and see if the Empire can stand up to the fury of the Dark Elves. So the Dark Elves getting a bit of a surround here. They do have the Dark Riders in the back, just kind of posturing, waiting for that opportunity to maybe strike on the Hammer of the Witches, but it looks like the Empire player is going to be using the Empire Knights a little bit defensively, but the Empire Knight's going to be taking a charge, probably not expecting it from the Dark Riders, so he didn't get the counter charge off, but nonetheless, Empire Knights should be able to beat down Dark Riders simply because of their armor, but I have a feeling Slaanesh's Harvesters are going to be coming in. He's going to be trying to get the old Slaaneshi sandwich here, as the Slaanesh's Harvesters do jump in the back. Word of Pain going down, but it's still a very risky engagement. I think the Empire Knights, in terms of cost, are going to come out a little bit ahead here. And it looks like Pimp Daddy GELT is also going to be dropping a fat final transmutation. Not going to be overcast, you don't really need to, and it is going to be melting these Slaanesh's Harvesters, who have very good physical resist, but not so much in the magic resist department. In the meantime, Silver Bullets and other handgunner units just unleashing hell to the Dark Riders, and it looks like the Greatswords of Sigmar are going to be rushing out there, just kind of weaving through, but the Knights of the Ebon Claw are going to be pouring in, but they are slightly intercepted by the Greatswords, which they're going to be good against, but nonetheless, they don't want to be fighting these guys while they're also taking handgunner fire and their Spearmen coming up. but the big old juicy soul light coming down, and it looks like Supreme Sorceress jumping in, but she does have the accusation put on her. Is that a flying mount? I could have sworn I saw her flying, but no, it's just going to be a regular horse. So in the back, pretty good engagement for the Empire so far. You can see that the Slaanesha's Harvesters and the Dark Riders did a little bit of damage against the Empire Knights, a nice little soul stealer on the retreat, but for the most part, I would say the Empire came out pretty far ahead in that trade. But the mainline fight, pretty disastrous for the Empires. Of course, the Dark Elf troops are just a little bit higher in quality overall. Dread Spears are going to be fighting Halberdiers, but of course these Sisters of Singing Doom who do cause terror are going to be very powerful here. They should be able to grind down the Greatswords, and they have the support of Cold One Knights and Sisters of Slaughter, so there's going to be so much stopping power there. On top of that, Blackheart Corsairs were able to fend off these spears and pretty much just take them without taking any damage in return. And it looks like the Empire's backline getting a little bit fragile over here. I mean, they're dominating heavily in this part of the battlefield, I would say. They have a good engagement. Pimp Daddy GELT in there going fisticuffs, Greatswords and Spears are fighting against Cap. Halberds coming in with a flank against these very expensive Dread Knights, right? So the, what are they called again? The Knights of the Ebon Claw Dread Knights definitely going to be getting pinned in with Halberds. So this is really good for the Empire, but on the other side, it's looking a little bit scary as the Hammer of the Witches plus the Handgunners back here are starting to get pressured pretty heavily. But the Brave Knights of the Empire are going to be surging forward and trying to ride down these Sisters of Singing Doom, but if they get rampaged, it could be a little bit of a tough situation. But those Greatswords really holding well. Of course, their armor values pretty high. You can see very low armor-piercing damage of these Sisters of Singing Doom. But if the Dread Spears kind of collapse on the back of them, I have a feeling they'll break pretty quickly. So as it stands, the Empire is definitely pretty far ahead in regards to the balance of power. The Dark Elves do have the Dark Riders kind of shooting in there, finally starting to get some pretty good positioning, and it looks like the Supreme Sorceress taking a very careful approach as another final transmutation does go down and is able to hit the Dread Spears, the Witch Elves, and some of these Corsairs. And the Warrior Priest is helping to hold, but you know, the Empire's getting a little bit kind of compromised now. You can see their guns are having to fight melee. The Sterling's Revenge, a pretty good hybrid unit in that they, you know, I think he used to say in their tooltip, yeah, it says close quarters infantry, but yeah, they're not. They're close quarters kind of hybrid infantry, but they're putting up a good fight, but they're starting to get really beat up here, and it looks like a lot of the Empire back line is starting to collapse. So you can see the Witch Elves and the Sisters of Slaughter pushing through, and they're going to be living true to their name as they're going to be slaughtering these Handgunners and some of these other Empire troops. So the Empire is going to be having to regroup here, which is so often the case. They get buckled in the initial fight and they have to like claw their way back into the game, but I don't know if they're going to be able to. You can see here that the Witch Hunter is going to be getting caned by the Supreme Sorceress, but he's a very good duelist. He does have that accusation. A very good play here from Hadri's. He does also pop the Opal Amulet to mitigate some of that damage. It is a flat 22% against all damage types, but the Witch Hunter has done a very, very good job here. So very, very close fight. Bounce power still even. It looks like the Dark Elves are kind of pulling this one back in. There still is a pretty heavy bastion of state troops here. We have 83 halberds, 56 greatswords, but unfortunately the Warrior Priest is a little bit kind of away from his troops. He needs to be brought to his men in the spirit of Karl Franz. He needs to move over here, get on top of the greatswords and the halberds. Yeah, he's kind of getting dragged down here by all these Dark Elf infantry, but thankfully he is a little bit more heavily armored than he used to be from Warhammer 1. So the Empire Knights just kind of riding about. The Witch Hunter doing a great job though. He's got that 360 no-scope, 34 ammunition, and some of the Empire guns might be able to rally here. And Balthazar GELT flying and cackling in the skies, but the Spirit Leeches plus the Dark One Riders have been, or the Dark One Riders? The Dark Riders with the Peter Crossbows have been doing a pretty good job against Balthazar GELT, and he's back up in the sky, but here comes another Spirit Leech. It's going to be tricky, but it looks like GELT's going to be responding very heavily with the final transmutation. It might even be an overcast, which I think is going to be really powerful. No, it's just going to be normal. That's going to be the saving grace for these state troops, as it's going to allow these halberds as well as these greatswords to probably win this fight against these Sisters of Slaughter as well as these Witch Elves here, and the Sisters of Singing Doom. I'm not really sure where they went, but anyways, the Empire looks to be stabilizing a little bit. They do have some guns in the back. The Hammer of the Witches crew is online, and a very heavy charge coming in here from the Empire Knights, and these Dark Riders were not in skirmish mode. So they're going to be taking the full brunt of that charge right there, probably going to be getting melted and broken off the battlefield here in just a moment. So here at the Sisters of Singing Doom, they definitely need to be taken apart, because if they're able to get their paws on anything, it pretty much spells their doom, as the name would infer. But the handgunners here back online could start shooting at these sisters. It looks like the cannon crew is going to be trying to go full on Mission Impossible and sneak past these Dread Spears and these other ones here and try and get back to the battle. I believe the cannons are still intact, so I don't think it's a big issue that they're a little bit beat up here. But yeah, you can see that Hadri's is going to see that coming. It's going to be sending the Dread Spears to kind of get on those guys. And the Sisters of Singing Doom getting the last Samurai here in the desert, but they're going to be closing the distance. And these 45 handgunners should probably be doomed. I mean, it would probably only take like 10 or 15 of these guys to finish off the handgunners. And yeah, it's going to be pretty much a massacre. They're shaken. And a very healthy group of handgunners is going to be forced off the battlefield. But in the center, the Sons of Sigmard are indeed holding, metaphorically, he doesn't actually have that unit. But the halberds and the greatswords here doing a very good job working through the Dread Spears. Empire Knights getting some really nice cycle charging, actually able to break off the Witch Elves, the Sisters, as well as the Supreme Sorceress. But I actually think that had to do with the Witch Hunter, who probably got another accusation. I think his third and final. off on top of the Supreme Sorcerers here. So the Witch Elves are going to be getting rode down here by the Empire Knights. They're going to be chasing these guys, which is definitely good in a very close battle, and this one is pretty much down to the wire. You have these very beat up state troops here. Halberds are wavering, Spearmen are actually broken. The Greatswords have 34 models. They're steady, but their leadership is still in the 30s. Not the best situation. And they're still going to have to contend with the Sisters of Singing Doom, who are very beat up. However, remember, these guys cause terror, so they could potentially come in here, could get a mass terror out on these Imperial troops here, which could really change the tide of the battle. In the meantime, the Empire Knights are doing a very good job just chasing down the Dark Riders. Looks like they're able to shatter those ones. They're going to be coming in probably for a charge right here to maybe finish off these Dread Spheres. But look at this. The Dark Elves actually have a group of Blackheart Corsairs, 75 models coming in. So maybe the Empire Knights are going to be charging these guys down, trying to do a little bit of a, softening up before they get to the state troops. And here comes the Empire charge, a massive charge hitting the retreating troops who are actually stacked on top of the Hammer of the Witches. But anyways, Empire Knight's going to be pulling back. And one thing that's going to be really tough for the Dark Elves is to finish off the Witch Hunter. He's going to be able to run and shoot. I have a feeling he's out of accusations. I'm pretty sure I've seen all of them this game, but really good play with the Empire Knights here. But the Corsairs are going to be piling in, and these guys are going to be doing some very good work against state troops. Blackheart Corsairs at their core are probably designed to kill state troops, so those type of units in general. They have, pretty good defensive stats for an offensive unit. They have a bonus for infantry. Not the best armor piercing, but very good for their cost at cutting through these lightly armored troops. So the Empire Knights come in, they get a pretty good charge there. Should be able to buckle off the Dread Spears, who are shaken. 18 leadership. Greatswords are still fighting. They have 60 kills. I think the Greatswords have really been the backbone here, but it looks like the Halberds are going to break. The Blackheart Corsairs are doing their thing, and the Sisters of Singing Doom are coming back. So it's looking a little bit dicey here for the Empire, as the Dark Elves do kind of barely pull back and forth. But again, it's going to be going in the favor of the Empire here at the last moments of the game. And the Witch Hunter is obstructed, but I think he's going to be one of the saving graces as well, as he does shoot in and gets that massive armor-piercing pistol shot, which actually pierces through the models in kind of like a cannonball type effect and does a ton of damage. But the Supreme Sorceress comes back, and it looks like she's able to get a Spirit Leech off on some of the Empire Knights, trying to get rid of those mobile tools, which are just ravaging his reinforcements. Every time he tries to bring something back, those Empire Knights are doing a beautiful job riding them down. And you can see the Spearmen here and the Greatswords are still fighting. So man, this is definitely some good leadership. But the Sisters of Singing Doom are going to be coming in. The Empire Knights coming in for a counter charge right there to try and fend off those angry ladies. But I have a feeling the terror is probably going to take hold. The Spearmen here, looks like Greatswords are terrified. The Spearmen are still holding. They have 30 models. They're shaken. 9 leadership, 1,000 HP. Just such a close-pitched fight, but you can see the Empire is creeping ahead on the bounce of power, as a lot of these Dark Elf troops are going to be breaking and wavering here. Shattered actually on the Lord, who was getting that Arcane Conduit. Maybe could have gotten another Spirit Leech to get the Dark Elves back in the game, but it's really going to come down to the Witch Hunter here. He's probably going to start running. He does have 9 shots left, so he's going to need to shoot these ladies because they're getting a little bit crazy here, and that terror is very, very powerful. So the Witch Hunter here is going to be fighting the Sisters of Singing Doom, but there are some Empire Knights left who I think are going to be really, really solid here if they can charge back in and get a rear charge, but it looks like they might have just rallied, and I don't know if the Empire player has noticed it quite yet, but the bounce power creeping back towards the middle once again. The Dark Elves might be able to get back in this fight as the Sisters of Singing Doom are cleaving their way through this Witch Hunter. I mean, they're a very, very high DPS unit, and of course he is infantry size, so that's really going to matter as well. But the Empire Knights still haven't been rallied yet. It looks like they're going to be getting ready in the distance. Some Greatswords coming back in. It looks like there's 13 in total. But remember, the leadership of the Dark Elves is actually completely gone, shattered off the battlefield. So it's really just going to be this Witch Elf, or this Witch Hunter, who's actually wavering. So the Witch Hunter actually fighting witches, which is very thematic here in the final seconds of this battle. I've thought that a couple times, but yeah, it looks like this is actually going to be the final seconds here. As the Sisters of Singing Doom are going to be wavering, and it looks like they might be breaking. The Empire Knights coming back in. Looks like they were trying to dodge the charge, but alas, they're going to be breaking, and it looks like the Blackheart Corsairs are going to be fighting, but the Empire Knights probably going to lose. I mean, Corsairs do have better combat stats. They have 36-28, but the Empire Knights 27-29, but of course armor is a very big variable here. Some of the state troops are coming back in. 26 Spearmen, and there's also going to be some Greatswords, but it looks like the Empire is going to win simply because I think the Witch Hunter did rally there in the last moments, and the Corsairs are going to be breaking before the might of Sigmar's own, these Empire Knights. So what a battle between these two players, both very high-level players. It's an awesome game between the Central Scrutinizer and Hadries, and yeah, just such a cockfight. I thought those Sisters of Singing Doom coming back in the fourth quarter might have been able to pull that game out with that terror out. That was pretty insane for sure. But it really looked good for the Empire in the initial engagements. And I think one of the things that really did cost Hadries the game, just in my opinion, and could be completely wrong, is I think the Slaanesha's Harvesters and the Dark Riders taking that early engagement, and also the Knights of the Ebb and Claw getting in there and going fisticuffs and just fighting against infantry and halberds for too long, I think is what cost him the game. But aside from that, his infantry did really good. They overwhelmed the flank, did an outstanding job getting on the cannons and the handgunners, and yeah, it was super close. But yeah, Central Scrutinizer did a really good job using his Empire Knights and his infantry and the greatswords and the spearmen and halberds held forever with the support of that warrior priest, but the witch hunter, of course, with his no scopes and Balthazar GELT sniping, I think we're able to seal the deal by taking out the Supreme Sorceress. So very well played to both these players. Big thanks for sending in the replay. Definitely appreciate it, guys, and hopefully you enjoyed this Empire for Stark Elf Showdown. Have an excellent night, guys, and take care.